It was Fred Savage who was the youngest star. Ever up for an Emmy for Best Lead Comedy. He was 13 years old. People in America loved him. But after many years, 6 women spoke out. With stories that broke that image. He was kicked off of his own show, Restart. His co-stars put up no more defenses. Him and the set that made his people didn't want to go to work anymore come back. The claims went back a long time. To 1993 and came back in 2022 with even bigger and scarier features. What did they do, say took place behind closed doors? The answer will change the way you watch the show. Always. There was an idea for the show. With 2 writers, Neil and Carol Black. Marlins was more than just a partner, and not just at work but in life too. It had worked. On Growing Pains and had a sense of something burning inside them after that success. They were looking to make something that were more in touch with their own emotions, something that kept the heat in, and it was hard to grow up in the late 1960s and early 1970s. They remembered their childhood. Streets and the little things that stayed with them. Marlins thought about town of Huntington on Long Island. Black I thought of Silver Spring, Maryland. When they got together, they talked about during those years, things started to fall apart. Place. They thought of a show that could remember things that make adults smile while also giving young watchers a sense of being seen. At ABC didn't think the idea would work at first. But people changed their minds over time. They took another look and give them a chance. From the beginning, they knew this was what the show was all about, or voice that the story could go from on the inside. That grew up, describe. Afterward, Carol Black said they meant to show how a child's quiet can help, never meant having no thoughts. How kids feel, it's more than they say. They believe more than they talk. The story turned into Athos as a look into Kevin's private life. A place where his thoughts could flow. Being honest, Daniel Stern took over the job and wrapped the in a calm, warm tone where something soft. How Al I met when Mills read the story for the first time, she the spark right away. It was what she said, she had never seen anything like it before. The narration wasn't on top of the story. It lived inside of it and giving meaning to times that could have they look small by themselves. Who made it didn't have that thought in being alone. Their thoughts were deeply affected. Be why the movie A Christmas Story, a movie that let a grown-up tell the story as a child with both fun and love. They really liked how the movie showed certain facts from a certain time, and it still managed to feel global, though. They after that feeling. What the link even more clear between the two when Peter Billingsley, the young man from A Christmas Story, showed up in the last as one of the shows of the Wonder Years roommates of Kevin. It seemed like both worlds giving each other a nod. Even though ABC had doubts at first, someone moved everything. Writing code chief Brandon Stoddard looked at the plane and felt something different. He made a brave move. He put the first show on right after the January 31st Super Bowl 1988. Almost 92 million people watched the game. When the show played, almost 29 million people watched. The original shot hit like lightning. Inside 6 episodes, it was already in the top 10 and won an Emmy for Best Comedy soon after. Time was right, but the story was what made it work. Which made people watch. Fred Savage knew from The Princess Bride. As the grandson, that was his job. A movie from 1987 showed hiring directors that he could be bad or good at any time and stronger feelings without trying to force them. When the producers needed a young actor who could carry a story about growing up, the face of Savage came back to them. Having a way to look brave and uncertain at the same time. That balance became very important. For Arnold Kevin. It needed a kid on the show who could talk about growth pains without too much talk. Savage had that skills. His early work showed that he could handle more adult scenes, and that made him stand out from other young artists. Danica McKellar tracked down her way almost by accident into the story. She first came in to try out for a small I didn't expect much from the guest part. Her Crystal's sister also tried out, and both made a big mark. But something that took place when Danica stood next to Fred Wild. It felt like natural chemistry, straightforward and truthful. The makers of I saw it right away and gave her a more important part. The first kiss they had in the pilot became a moment fans still talk about. Don't forget. For both of them, it was their first kiss for real. That scene had twits both weird and nice to feel this way, and since they were both scared, the every take showed how people felt. The moment was filmed more than once to get the sincerity they were going for. And that close attention set the tone for the rest of the show. And Dan Lauria and the Arnold family was brought to by Ally Mills. Life in a way that made everything real. Lauria used to be in the Marines. Become an entertainer, and that event shaped how he played Jack Arnold. This man spoke with a firm voice and a weight in his presence that felt real. Mills added heat that made things softer. The rough edges. Together, they showed people of that time who were adjusting to new jobs and growing up pressures. Their relationship helped hold how the show really works. Looking at people, Athy could see their own parents in him. The fights and ties. Kevin also needed the right balance. Josh Saviano plays Paul Pfeiffer. Became the one and only best friend who gave support and fun in a quiet way. It was Wayne Arnold who played Jason Hervey. There is stress and anger as the older brother who always did make fun of Kevin's fears. This triangle made a beat that people know. Four people who had brothers as kids or close friends. How they performed got the messy mix of love, and competition that shape early teenage years. Daniel Stern's writing linked everything together. His voice they became the show's soul and led people looking at Kevin's memories with love and thought. The sound made the story reads like a diary or a work of literature read out loud. The show was able to look into deeper themes without Everett was losing the gentle humor that made it fun. Built up. The story lingered in fans' minds long after the shows are over. It was the end of one of the most parts of the story that you know. When the first episode aired after the Super Bowl in January 1988, it had a right away. The time made a lot of money off eyes, but it was the thoughts that, being honest, kept people around. The Dethoff, Kevin's childhood friend in the first episode, made it clear that this wasn't going to like any other show. The voice of Joe Cocker, I am singing with some help from my friends decide what to do. All of a sudden, the show had made a name for itself. It was only the second show in history to air after the Super Bowl and make that moment last a long time. Good luck. Critics spoke out right away. The show was praised for feeling feel good, new, and more grounded than anything else that was on TV at the time. It went from stories about first love, stress from family, and national tense with a sense of what's real. The voiceover helped the show get to both folks who lived through the late 1960s and kids who were going through their own problems. In the Nielsen, it went up top 30 for 4 years in a row and kept getting praise every year. There was even history made by Wonder Years in 1988. It won after only 6 shows. Winning the Emmy for Best Comedy Series at the 40th Primetime Emmy Awards. That new shows almost never had this happen. It also won a Peabody Award in 1989 for trying new things with sitcoms telling stories. Over time, 22 awards were given to the show. And 54 more names were sent. It showed that people were ready for something new. Telling stories about their childhood. Fredwin Savage, he reached another important point, was the youngest actor to ever be named for the Best Lead Actor in a Comedy Series. He was 13 years and 70 days old in 1989. That record is still good. His performance showed that even a young star could carry a show based on depth of feeling. He was put forward again the next year, making him a TV star. History. The Real House of Wonder Year was quiet. With the address 516 University Avenue, Burbank. And it looked like any other 1949 built one-story house. 3 bedrooms, 3 baths, and nothing else. At first glance, it looks big. However, pulled the weight that comes with. Many people have watched it on their screens. The address showed up in from 1988 to 1993, every season. And fans still walk by slowly, almost like they're walking for a moment into Kevin Arnold's life. It has been their home since before they even started filming the show, and almost nothing changed, which only helps the feeling last longer. Today, the house is really worth more than $1.40 million. Still, what matters more is how well you know it seems. It was in the every week in the first few names, which is one reason it became one of the most well-known TV shows ever. Even though the show seemed like it looked like it came from a warm town in the middle of America, the truth changed in it, going in a different way. A lot of the filming took place near Los Angeles. The Arnold Burbanks family street was there. Roseme High School was used for the school scenes. School and Van New York High School. There was also use of neighborhoods. Another crew walked block after block search for places that felt likey in the late 1960s. They looked for homes that had the right doors and windows, streets with the right trees, and small edges that carried that mild and nostalgic mood. That's why fans can still go to these places today, believe they look a lot alike what they did many years ago. The people who own the Burbank house has been lived in by fans visiting for years. They see people picture taking, looking at the porch, or trying to remember things they say on TV. They didn't let anyone in. People can take pictures while on walks. From the ground for as long as did the right thing. Some fans even quit over the years. I've given and received small gifts and cards, which shows how strongly a family can be a part of real lives. The house slowly changed into amateur site. Even though no one had planned it in this way, the story fell into the walls that people kept going back to feel a part of it. You're inside the house saw on the show, and nothing went with the home in Burbank. Every scene inside from the living room to the kitchen made at Fox Studios on a soundstage in Culver City. The crew that made it went through old catalogs and looked for antique shops in 3 states and filled the stage with set pieces from the 1960s. The lights, the chairs, and the wallpaper, everything, even the fridge, came from careful opt for. The outside was real, but the it was built like a memory on the inside. The split gave the show full power. Over the outfit, and it made both look good. Smooth worlds that most viewers I never even thought about it. The story things weren't always calm around the show. In March 1993, a gown maker named Monique Long turned in a sexual abuse claim, not being sued by Fred Savage, who was Jared Hervey, who was 16 at the time, and 20. She said they made her job hard. With rude comments and unwanted behavior. And she said no one paid attention when she complained. She said the performers, the makers, and the production companies that are being sued. She said the place of work felt unfriendly and that she was fired in the end because of it. The case made its way through Los Angeles Supreme Court, and it caused there were questions that went far beyond the set. The group and the network people in charge denied everything, and it was a suit to cause trouble, hurt their names. The case ended without a fuss, and the terms sealed, and the case was thrown out. After a while, Fred Savage said he was okay. Even though he was still mad about the experience, some people on the group said they thought the claims were false while others were still not sure. The trouble cast a shadow over the show and start to wonder how much they really knew what the job was like. Behind that sweet family story. Years in an interview in 2018, Allie Mills, she opened up about her role as Norma Arnold. She thought the case was silly and the network turned off the show because of it. She thought the series reviews still had life left, were strong, and they were afraid of trouble. Pushed the bosses to stop it. She fought hard to protect Fred Savage, calling was kind and gentle. But not everyone agreed. Some people on the group said Monique, the reason Long was fired had nothing to do with everything to do with harassment performance at work. These different points of view kept the argument going. Even now, people disagree on whether the sued and stopped the show, or whether the show had run its course. Fred, there were more claims made against Savage. In 2018. This time from a dress-in artist on the show The Grinder. She said he hit her arm, used scare tactics, and made a dangerous environment setting for female staff. While again, they denied everything. The Office, they looked into it and found no proof to back up their claims, and the case was thrown out in 2019. Still, the repeated claims his public appearance harder to understand. What is a clean boy next door? It now had layers, and those layers changed how some people remember him. Getting ready for the show behind the scenes, it never stayed as warm as it looked. Every day of shooting was shaped by labor laws. Fred Savage had to go to school for at least not less than 3 hours, which meant tutors taking him away from scenes all the time. He would sometimes leave for lessons and be taken back quickly 20 minutes later to finish a shot. Scenes were shot in order, as well as balancing acting, school, and after some rest, long days became tired ones. The adults stood around while the kids played. Going back and forth. For the young group, work less like making a sweet family, it's more like trying to stay alive in a busy schedule while growing up at the same time. The show's stories got heavier as the years went by. Trauma from Vietnam, family fights, Karen's defiance, and the bad side of the 1960s started to set the mood. These storylines needed real feelings. In many scenes left the young players drained. They had to cry on the spot, feel or deal with the stress of being in adult issues in a world where they were still kids. The truth made the show was strong, and the set looked great. Tense. There are days when the mental weight lasted a long time after the cameras quit rolling. The group also had to deal with tabloid attention. Mary Danica McKellar and the news got worse as Fred Savage aged. As 18, I made up stories based on them. A couple. A lot of people watched them, asked questions, spread rumors over and over, and made it hard to tell the difference between people in the story and their real lives. Everyone paid attention to them, and made the stress stronger. They were teenagers who are trying to work and make a living, and the light seemed brighter than they needed it. For many of the cast, the set turned into a strange mix of chances and stress on the emotions. The first show off the Wonder Years quickly became known. It didn't stop climbing once it did. Take it easy. It had a great first season. Reached number 30 on the Nielsen list and then stayed there for 4 straight years. It got awards almost right away. A Primetime Emmy was given to it. Award for Best Comedy Series in 1988, only 6 shows after the first episode, something that no one had ever heard of before. As the show went on, Fred Savage with it and made history. He was 13 years old. Was the youngest actor to ever be named for the Best Lead Actor in a Comedy Series. The business world kept an eye on it and a lot of people liked the show. The Peabody Award was created in 1989 for moving shows into new areas. It won 22 awards by the end of its run. Was nominated 54 times and won Aspet on TV Guide's list of the 20 best 1980s TV shows. In 1997, Feeny Dad's Office got to number 29 on TV Guide's list of the 100 best shows ever made a show. Even the new version, they had the same spark. Between 2021 and it got its own Peabody Award in 2023. With 18 votes and 7 wins from groups like the Andy Bean AACP Image Awards and the Black Reel Awards. Though the story had changed, but the effect was still there. Strong. It had an effect on many other counts. How the show told its story changed the way teen TV would look like for a long time. The adult voiceover Daniel Stern's delivery made a soft look back and remember that felt fresh in the late 1980s. It was more than just criticism. It seemed like when an older person falls back into trying to be a younger version of themselves. Explain how you felt at certain times. Not clear. That style led to shows like Everybody Doesn't Like Chris and How I Met Your Mother. They even led a whole wave of childhood comedies that play on memories. It was Ally Mills who said she didn't at first to understand the story since it felt very different. However, she heard how well it went with the scenes. She saw how strong it was. The setup with one camera and the not having a laugh track made every feel like the moment is real. It told the narrator's room for your voice to show humor and feeling, not by forcing anything. That difference between how the kid felt in the moment and what the adult got from it eventually became a model for what was to come coming-of-age stories. When the restart came around, there was a heart in it in 2021. First, but moved into a different world. It was made by Saladin K. Patterson. With Lee Daniels, and the two of them changed the story by adding a black Montgomery family from the middle-class Alabama close to the end of the 1960s. The change made it possible to talk about the South, human rights, and the real world of being black and growing up during that time. The pilot was shown on September 22, 2021, and won attention almost right away. Not fans, they reacted with kindness and respect. 96% of people who checked Rotten Tomatoes liked it. Score from 24 reviews, with an average score of 7.7 out of 10. What reviewers called it sweetly romantic while also being grounded. Thoughts of a time when the world was every corner is different. The place added complexity that the first show lacked, had room to move around, which turned the reboot into something that could stand on its own, instead of living in the shadow of the graphic world of the reboot is based on. Made this change seem even more real. Instead of making a new copy of the original places in California, the group built everything new. ATL was where they shot it, Montgomery, and shaped the time-exact neighborhoods instead of the old neighborhood sets were used again. History. DeKalb County streets showed up again on screen, with parts of Lithonia Main Street. They took over Montgomery, the downtown areas that held the weight off past in their walls. Who made it wanted each frame to have a sense of stability, so people could enter the world as if it was late 1960s when they lived there. That care for detail made a world that looked like it had been lived in, something that matched how the story made you feel. Still, even though it got good reviews and awards, but the reboot couldn't beat the normal problems that come up with network TV. ABC ended it after 2 seasons in 2023. Seasons, and the last show aired on May 24. Scores were important, and some thought the debate surrounding Fred Savage, who was in charge of shows, which put more pressure on the network, didn't want. Both fans and reviewers said let down by how the show seemed. It seemed like it had more to say. Short-lived became another reminder of how hard it's to bring back well-known works in a landscape where people quickly change their minds. Things move even faster on networks. The Savage caused a lot of trouble in the past. The first run and kept up with him into the restart. His picture in public changed a lot because of accusations. It was 1993, and Monique Long, a costume designer, sued him, saying that and Jason Hervey of being rude. The case was worked out without going to court, and the show as the 7th season finished earlier than expected. No matter what Savage said, there was never a cloud over the case. Faded away completely. New 6 women came forward with claims getting ready to reboot. They talked about unsettling times, such as aggressive actions behind closed doors and stories that changed how people saw him. Light. One woman told him her eyes would go dead when he was mad. Someone else talked about two events, one at a bar and another talked about the uncomfortable stress with a younger coworker. After a probe, he was fired as the director and chief producer. Wilde put out a message saying he wanted to fix any damage he caused. He had already done harm to his image, taken a big hit. The damage didn't stop. That's it. It was Aline Mills who played Kevin's mother, felt very angry about how everything turned out. She had always backed up Savage and thought the first case had no grounds. She called him the least rude and the nicest person she had ever worked with. She thought the show had to end. Blamed the air for being unfair. Amount paid for making the show off guilt. She said ABC should have fired him. The accused instead of giving her money. Hurd was angry for years, and every time she talked about the case. With the exact same anger. For her, the show got in trouble for no reason, and she thought of the story as a whole. Not fair. This made getting back together harder than no one was surprised. A lot of fans dream of an old group gets together again and laughs on telling stories about the same set when they were kids. But the truth is now in a deep shadow. At Thane Knoxville in 2024, 6 of the 7 main group members showed up for panels and pictures. Savage wasn't there, and everyone could feel the hole he left. Some fans said that the lost face made the whole power of the event. Ben, his brother, has also stayed away from gatherings. What it ought to have been warm memories. No is tense because the past isn't over, no longer easy. The sweet thoughts of their still on the show, but now they sit next to court cases, charges, when trust is broken, and the hard truth of how people change over time.